400, 300 million years ago, with fungi, with bacteria, with one cell creatures. And we slowly moved onwards for them, and that to create fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and then mammals, and then us humans. So through our DNA, we are still connected to this core of life, which started millions of years ago. And also, if you look at this scale, we've only been around for like a sneeze in a time of hundreds of centuries. Further to that, I discovered that I am nature. You and me, we are nature, and we are connected to all life, which is very literally, not because I love nature, but every one of us carries about 1 to 1.5 kilos of non-human life with him, her, or them, for the non-binary people in this meeting. So you carry around life that is not human. How come? Well, our intestines have a lot of bacteria, and we have bacteria on our skin, positive bacteria, which actually weigh up to 1.5 kilos. And we just don't have them in us. We need them. They actually digest what we call food into something that we can digest. So without them, we would be dead. And without us, they would be dead. And it's even more astonishing if we look at the fact that if we count all the cells of those 1 to 1.5 kilos of non-human life, their cells are smaller than ours. We have more cells in and on us of non-human life than humans. So what are we? Are we humans? So you over there, me here, I am more non-human in cells than I am human. I'm critically connected to nature. But that's not how our society lives today. Next slide, please. Short-term humanity really shows that we are screwing up our planet. We're screwing up our home. We have an impact on air pollution. We ruin the brains of unborn children. We ruin our planet with tar sands extraction and other extractions of oils. We've deteriorated a beautiful paradisal place like Borneo or Kalimantan within 50 years, from something that would be full of lush forests to a very much less green area. And the green that's still there are predominantly palm plantations, serving our right to eat, to consume, to have stuff now. But through that, we are creating much more than just a climate crisis. We are causing a biodiversity climate crisis. I was born in 1974. I'm 47 years old, and through my life, 2/3 of all wildlife on this planet has disappeared. Where there were 5 big animals, big mammals, when I was born in 1974, there's only 1 left. And the major cause is ecosystem degradation. A major cause is the way we are dealing with our planet. And the World Economic Forum, we can see on the left, has predicted that the biggest stress for us, the biggest risks are not terrorism, are not cyber attacks. No, it's all environmental. It's extreme weather, climate change, failure to action, biodiversity loss. And we know this, and you know this. I should actually not be telling you this, but also to put it in a different perspective, if you show the next slide. If we look at the world today, in this circle, we have more people living in this circle than outside of this circle. So this is an area in Asia that has about 3.5 to 4 billion people living in there. And next slide, if you see where the water stress is today, it's right there. They are already experiencing water stress. Why? Because of, yes, extreme weather, but also because the steady flow of meltal water, glacial water melting from the Himalayas has actually already being deteriorated. And next slide, the World Resource Institute actually predicts that it will be that area and other areas that already have conflict. So the Middle East, the North African regions, the regions that we already see conflict in, that have issues already today, will have water issues. Our wars will be about water, especially with more climate change and with more problems that will cause. But then the hope comes. Next slide. Thankfully, there is you, there is youth, there is the next generation. And youth is no longer taking this. You are showing us adults that we need to grow up and be more responsible, not just for us and for our future for tomorrow, but also for the future of youth and future generations. You're on the streets. You're part of lawsuits, which we will see in a few slides. You lobby through the Jonge Klimaatbeweging, the Young Climate Movement, and Coalitie I in the Netherlands, and you're so effective. You've actually made it into the new coalition agreement with a separate a climate authority and a separate and a new generation assessment that we need to make, and that I will get back to in the end. But you've also pointed us on issues like ecocide, the rights of nature, and rights and human rights in future generations. And indeed, this slide, it's good, you don't need to go back. You've been part of many of the lawsuits. Lawsuits have been done for you, like in Switzerland, where elderly women, the Klimaatseñorinnen, have gone to court for youth. They actually say we are grandmothers. And yes, we suffer from warmer weather. And because of the warmer weather, there's more ozone in the air. And we suffer due to the worse air quality. But we do this for our future generations. Future generations have been in the Urgenda case. We have won at the first instance, creating in the Netherlands the principle of fairness towards future generations, which impacts you. And indeed, next slide, this really shows us through the increase of those cases and also the work that's been done in the UN and all sorts of reports that I've been working on, that there's a true and a very clear link between human rights and future generations and nature and social issues. And you've heard from my good friend David Boyd, if I'm correct, in one of the first lectures. So I won't go into that too deep, but I will take you to the next slide, which have actually been cases on behalf of youth and future generations. And cases on behalf of future generations, the first one was Tony Oposa, a good friend, and he's still around and he's still doing cases. And he saw that the biggest forest in the Philippines was about to be sacked, about to be ruined, and no one could do anything about it. And then he remembered a constitutional paragraph saying that all generations have a right to live in a healthy and clean environment. And he asked his friends, who all had younger children, he said, can I be their lawyer? Can I take this to court? And he won. He won this at the Supreme Court. And that held that a group of minors definitely had the right to sue on behalf of succeeding generations. And those were minors, so those were really children. Like I said, future generations have been part of the Urgenda and the Shell cases. The Shell case, I'm part of an advisory committee in that. I'm a part of many lawsuits on climate change and air pollution and other environmental issues related to human rights worldwide. But a very nice one is also the work that, which is many cases, the work that Our Children's Trust do. So do follow them also on Twitter and Instagram. It's not just youth going to court, but it's youth doing the cases. It's youth showing up in the courtrooms, youth between 13 to 25 years old, doing the talks on the street, talking to the media. And a judge in one of the cases said, I'm a judge in Minneapolis, and I don't have jurisdiction in Bangladesh, but I feel for the people in Bangladesh. They are drowning, they're losing their harvest, they're in trouble. I also care about the polar bears, but I don't have jurisdiction on the North Pole. However, I do have jurisdiction in Minneapolis. And these young people in front of me in this court case have a good case. And therefore, I will rule that the state of Minneapolis in that case has to strengthen its focus and has to do more on combating climate change. And also two of the major cases recently done, of which one, a youth group, the Natur'et Og, in Norway was a part of. They went up to the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, they lost in Norway, but in Germany, the climate case was won. And the German Supreme Court said this new constitutional article, which grants rights to a healthy and clean environment for present and future generations, clearly applies to youth and future generations. So yes, they can stand up for their rights. Next slides. And I think this is part of a bigger hope that I'm actually a part of, or I see through my work, and I've rediscovered through my work, that we see indigenous principles of not just harvesting from nature, but being in balance and exchanging with nature. putting ourselves back into nature. We see those principles pop up. There's the Well-Being of Future Generations Act of Wales and Gibraltar, with a special commissioner to rule over that and to watch over that. The Ombudsman for Future Generations in Hungary, and I'm part of the NGO initiative in the Netherlands and acting ombudsperson for future generations. But there's much more. Also, the work that David Boyd has explained, the work of the UN Harmony with Nature group, and I will show you a little bit on the rights of nature as well. The Earth Trusteeship, and to live within planetary boundaries. Next slide, please. And I think this all starts, or this starts also with a revelation that maybe had its peak when people claimed they could sell the moon. People said, you can buy pieces of the moon and we will sell them to you because the moon hasn't been claimed by humans, so it's ours now. And if you see the next slide, you'll also already see that we need to get a new position into life. We see the pictures on Iceland and also on La Palma and the other volcanoes and how they form new life. It shows us how humble we are. And French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau already said, what a silliness and what a stupid man and group of people that they didn't stand up when this one guy at some point in time said, no longer is this land, does it belong to all of us, but this land, I will put a fence around it and it belongs to me. And no one at that time stood up and said, you're the craziest idiot ever seen. You cannot own nature. Not being able to own nature is part of indigenous tradition and beliefs. And I was actually mostly stunned by it and inspired by it when I was in front of this tree. This tree immediately proved to me why trees should have legal standing. I already had heard about the book and Rights of Nature, and this is about 4.5 years ago that I was in Bristol Cone Canyon in the United States. And this tree that I'm standing in front of here, it's my own picture, is about 5,000 years old. It's only 3 meters high, 3.5, 4 meters high. It looks like it's half dead. You see a little green. 5,000 years old. It was there. It had already been there for 2,000 years when they started building the pyramids in Egypt. Go figure. Become humble. It was already there for 3,000 years when Jesus walked the land in Israel. A major issue for many people, especially when we approach Christmas. And it will be there for thousands of years if we leave it alone, if we don't hurt it, if we don't cut it down. How can we claim ownership over such an immense, beautiful, and centuries living being? If you put the next slide on, and this is the big hope. I could give a lecture for a few hours on this, but there's so many examples worldwide where we see the rights of nature popping up. We are working at this point of actually buying a forest in France and creating it into the first forest in Europe that belongs to itself. So we're actually trying to work with society and create legal personhood for this natural area, because our societies in this Western society still refuse to do this. We had an example to do this for the Wadden Sea and other natural areas in the Netherlands, like the Maas or the Meuse River or the IJssel River, but also for Amelisweer near Utrecht, a beautiful park place, and make it to recognize the principles of the rights of nature and actually make it a legal person, so it can stand up for itself in society. So it needs to be talked to when people want to take decisions that impact nature. Next slide. Yes, we have still much to learn from indigenous people. I addressed the names of my 7 ancestors 7 generations ago when I started this lecture, but this is what all the Yakyeta in Kazakhstan learn. They are aware of where they come from. So they are always aware of where they're going to and whose rights and whose lives they will impact. And the North American natives also say it's one of our first mandates given to us as chiefs to look ahead, to look far ahead, and to make sure that every decision that we make relates to the welfare and well-being of the 7th generations to come. The 7th generations to come, yes. Future generations, it's being connected with their ancestors and going into the most beautiful future. about recognizing that we borrow our planet from our children is not good enough. It's like a hollow phrase, not good enough as a statement. We need to act in our daily lives as good ancestors, not as parasites on this planet. And this picture really shows a nice one where the Earth says to the moon, I came from the doctors. Turns out I got humans. And then the moon says, oh man, are you okay? And then the Earth says, no, the doctors told me it's terminal. And we can laugh about it, but in fact, the way we are dealing with our planet today is very much that case, as a parasite on this planet. And one of the core messages of the United Nations human rights realm is to promote meaningful participation. And I already put it in there. Young people should be consulted and have meaningful opportunities to participate, because we need you young people to help us grown up who are so stuck in our old system, who are so stuck already to, well, this is just the way that we do things, and this is just the way that things work. And it's either that we get a revolution, or we listen to you and take into considerations your new approaches, because you're already much more connected to planet. So we need to listen to you. And thank God we are doing this more and more. And please, the next slide. And we should do this as well. I don't have the time for that, but some of you might recognize it. Most of you won't. This is actually on the ceiling in our Senate in the Netherlands. And the painter painted a huge ceiling with all sorts of paintings about our past and our trade with foreign countries, also a bit slavery and things that we look back on with negative feelings today. In the center of the ceiling made this picture, and he already said when he was commissioned to do this, he said, these are the children of the men, sorry, it was only men then in the Senate, of the men that will be meeting here today. And whatever they do, they need to take into consideration the interests of these youngsters. They are looking from the future to the people in this room today to make wise decisions. So we need more ombudspersons. No, back, please, back once. So we need more ombudspersons, guardians, also in companies. Why shouldn't companies have governance that takes into consideration the rights and interests of youth and future generations? We need to envisage. We have a beautiful envisage exercise which takes you from 7 generations back to 7 generations in the future, where you can really see the desired future. And through backcasting, you can see what we need to change today to get there. We need this advisory opinion. If you haven't heard of it yet, please make sure you connect to it. Yves Fleming, a Dutch young lawyer who was the Dutch youth representative, is part of it. It's the advisory opinion to the United Nations International Court of Justice, asking whether there's a link between climate change and human rights violations. And it's a fully youth-led plea and a fully youth-led appeal to the court. We need generation assessment. We need to see the impact. So to need a toekomst-effectrapportage, we call it that. So a future impact assessment. It should be part of our governance. We need to have more and new sorts of laws, acts on the well-being. We need parliamentary processes, national human rights institutions to work on that. And it all needs to include youth participation everywhere. So the last step for me would be to you to also show that courage and being brave actually helps. I mean, when Greta set out there in the parliament in Sweden, she had no clue that it would lead to this. When Werner Schouten and Pieter Lossi started the Jongeren Klimaatbeweging, and others were there around as well, they had no idea they could actually get it into this new regeerakkoord and make those steps. So definitely think about it in everything you do. How do you give a voice to, how do you influence taking youth and future generations issue a part in new governance? How will you flourish is a big question as well. What does that world look like? So don't focus on a negative world. Don't focus on us screwing up your future, but find your desired and most beautiful future and fight for that. What can you do to get there in your profession, whether you become a lawyer, a hairdresser, a writer, a communication expert, whatever? How can you help support this cause? Be brave, I dare you to be brave because you do have an influence. Thank you very much. That's my talk now, and I'm really open for questions.
Great, thank you so much. Now I realize we have quite a few people, so let's take a few questions. I give you guys the floor, unmute your microphones. It will be great to get your cameras on for a picture as well. If you guys please don't be shy, turn on your cameras. And who would have a question to our keynote speaker?
Well, I didn't hear the whole talk, but I would like to add, I heard something. I'm from the Youth Climate Movement, and I heard you saying, Jan, that Werner and Peter Lossi started this movement. Well,
no, it's a much bigger group. It's a few people that I know, and I know.
Yeah, exactly. Werner was not at the start. He's been there for 2 years now, not involved anymore. Yeah, a bit. But the start was from 3 other youth organizations that started the Youth Climate Movement because they indeed saw a gap here in the Netherlands that the youth was not being heard of by the policymakers, and they filled that gap. And indeed, the past 2 years with Werner at our head of our board, we gained a lot of traction in the Dutch, in Holland. Yeah.
Annika is doing an awesome job as well. But I think the point that I try to make with that is that before youth were actually quite shy and were like, you are the adults and we will be working and we'll be polite. But it's actually you're becoming the moral compass for the leaders of today and tomorrow. And I think an important point, and this is where I also bump into, an important point is also for youth movement to be aware of a continuous flow of leaders, and to have them be a part of the network of those grown-ups. And why do I say that? For me, it's an amazing job to keep track of all the people in the youth politicians parties, all the people in Jongeren Milieuraad, in Jongeren Klimaatweg, because I'm old. I'm middle-aged, but I'm getting old. So for me, it's very tough to keep connected to the ever-changing youth movement. So this is I think a very crucial point as well, because that is a beautiful future that you are helping us create. Yeah, so thanks for that.
Totally agree. What I want to add on that is indeed definitely youth should speak up more. But on the other side of us speaking out loud, saying what we want, saying what we need in the future, is the older generation listening, giving us recognition for what we are saying and compliment us on what we are doing. Exactly what you are doing now, Jan. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of still like people grown in the old ways, and those need to change. And yes, therefore we need to speak up even more.
Yeah. No, and we're not there yet, and it's very good that you mentioned. I also heard that one of the ministers actually said, "I want more youth participation," and he went to a consultancy firm and he said, "You tell me how." And then the firm said, "How go talk to youth." I mean, so we're still in this old age of, and I think we should actually break down the walls between the generations. So it's about intergenerational equity, intergenerational justice, but also our common future. Common means that we are connected and we're not just old, middle-aged, and youth. No, we're all one humanity. Okay.
Great. I see Shanya's hand is up.
Hi, yes. So I wanted to touch on that topic that you just mentioned about connecting and breaking down the barriers between youth and the older generation. What then are your thoughts, and are you in any way involved in maybe pursuing that topic on lowering the voting age in the Netherlands to 16 years? Because it's also a big discussion in Germany, and it's a more recent discussion here now as well. And I think that would definitely contribute to that. So as the ombudsman for future generations, is this a topic that you're actively pursuing?
Definitely. And I think if you see what people we still allow to vote when they're 95, 96, 97. You know, some people that will listen to their grandchild and vote anything. It's a disgrace that we don't take into consideration the active and the new thinking of our youth, our future. So I fully agree on that. I also want to, and this is what I continuously stress, I think in any committee, any council, I mean, we have awareness that that we need to still fight this gender imbalance in many, you know, in many boards. So for instance, I'm the board of the National Parks System in the Netherlands. I'm young there. This is only old gray men, which is, and I keep on saying this is silly, and then they say, well, we have a vacancy and we have sufficient white males that apply and they do their work well, and you know, we need to have this diversity has to be an active thing on gender, on generations, on background, because otherwise we don't get a representation in our country. And this is also a true balance we also need in our parliament. And it's hard to make that mandatory, because then you're also, you know, you're moving against what is also our constitution and the core principles of democracy. But I think youth could actually say, what serious political party are you if you have more than 10 seats and not one of them or two of them are represented by the group that they represent? And this is youth, but also, and I think also this is a very important point for you as well. Not just in the Netherlands we call this higher and lower education, but the better word is some more theoretical or more practical educated people, because this is also a gap in our society. We don't see youth. Also, we see less youth also in youth representation coming from more practical or what we tend to call the lower education problem. It is a problem, but we need to address this, because then we get an inclusive area in society. Yeah, so I fully agree, Sanja.
That's very interesting also on the fact that maybe then youth groups also have to do a bit more work, because I know for a fact I was also in a few youth organizations over my university years, and we were all from Leiden and the Hague University. So there was also not really that diverse background of education levels.
Yeah, so the future you want, the desired future, you need to integrate in all the levels that you act. And for me, yeah, whenever I talk about sustainability, I end up in groups where I'm the only guy, or there's just a few guys, it's majority women. And then I tell, we need to get more guys in here. Yeah. So we always have to be aware of that, because the diversity actually brings the most desired futures of the biggest group. And yeah, that's what will get us forward. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the answer.
Great, thank you so much. If maybe one more question before we move on to projects. No?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, Willem, great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Guy. So Jan, thank you so much. Really so much enthusing all of us. I just want to raise a question about making future generations and nature a legal personality. I'm not a legal, not having a background whatsoever. But can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because if I am in contact with some lawyers, they say, well, that's all the proliferation of human rights. So now we are stretching it up too far. To give trees rights and future generations. We have so hard work to do to get the human rights of torture away. And that's a core human right. So how would you address that kind of questions about proliferation of human rights?
Thank you for this question, Willem. And I think maybe David Boyd could also answer that on the area of environmental human rights, because when I started working on environmental human rights about 15 years ago, all the human rights people said, don't work on the environment and human rights. You will be diluting this system, and it's already hard on torture, on incarceration. And then you just need to realize that human rights are a part of our most fundamental needs, and to live in a healthy and clean environment, to have clean drinking water, to have food, to have clean air is part of our human rights. And similarly, and I also fully agree that people that say the rights of nature can also lead to an abuse of rights, I fully agree, because if you go to the core of where this is coming from, and the first initiatives that we've seen in the world, it's related to indigenous people who don't see nature as something that can have rights. No, nature is something that we are part of. We are part of our ancestors. We are part of our future. We are part of nature. But to represent nature in our society, we do this through law. Because law is what we call, I often call, I need to think about this in English. In Dutch, I would say, recht is gestolde ethiek. So it's actually ethics that has become frozen or have become, you know, put in words. And this is also how the rights of nature should work. So there are three ways of approaching this. You can put it in your constitution, and then it should really be part of our core system. If you put it in your legal system, you can say, you know, we have given rights to businesses. People started to trade, and then they said, you know, we need to trade together. So we want to set up a company, and this company needs to be represented in society. So we will give this legal personhood. This is something that people thought of. It didn't exist. So we give rights to things that don't exist, that are dead. So similarly, we can give those rights to things that are alive, to legal or to natural systems. And this is the example that has been followed, for instance, in New Zealand, where a river, a volcano, and a national park have been given rights. And the funny thing is, also me as a lawyer and the group that I'm part of, we have continuously been looking for lawsuits. So what happens if the rights are violated? Will the river go to court? Will the national park go to court? And we haven't found any in New Zealand. We found a dispute of a year ago where the Crown member forgot to ask the indigenous, the Maori members, to make a new bridge over the river. And the Maori were very angry because they were ignored. And then they got together. They sat together. They said, what are the interests of the river here? Can we make this bridge so that it serves humans and it doesn't violate the rights of the river that has metaphysically meaning for us? And then they agreed. So what we actually see, if you take the rights of the rivers and the rights of nature into consideration before we make human decisions and human plans, the outcome is much more sustainable. And last but not least, another way of approaching is through rights. And this is what we've seen in Bangladesh and India, where judges have said, okay, our law recognizes that a river is a living system. Our religion also says that the Yamato and the Ganges River are our holy rivers. So if those rivers are alive, just like humans, and if humans have rights, then rivers have rights too, right? So this is more of an analogy approach. And what I would support for the Netherlands and more Western-focused societies to take this legal personhood approach. Why? Because it would work in society. If we would violate the rights, yes, it could go to court. But the interest is it would actually be the other way around, because the natural area would be at the table for every decision that has been taken about her. And right now we rely on the government to represent nature in that decision-taking process. And it doesn't. It really doesn't. It always chooses for economy. So it tries to, but in the end, it's always, because of these humans with their own other short-term interests, nature always loses. So what if nature, represented by people with the core duty to represent the interests of the whole ecosystem, could have a place in our societies? Then it's not diluting human rights. It would actually bring us to a more sustainable society. So that's the way I think, nature rights could work.
Thank you so much. Yeah, there's one more question, and I would love to read it up for you from a colleague who's showing support towards our work. She's asking about the inclusion and diversity related to youth with disabilities. If you in your work has come across this.
I'm reading this as well. Yeah, I think this is crucially important. And similarly to what I've said about practical and theoretical education, about color of your skin, about being masculine, feminine, or non-binary, I think for disabled people, it's even more important because we often don't see them. And I think it's crucial, and I've heard this also for someone with a disability, that people with the disability are representing the people with a disability. So it's not enough that a healthy guy like me just stands there and says, we have to take care about people with a disability, because I don't know what it's like. I can try to imagine what it's like, but I don't know what it's like to have this disability. So I fully agree. I think at any point that we work, any issue that we address, we need to address this as, how would it be if this was the society, if this was a inclusive, sustainable, fair and balanced with all life working society. And that needs representation of all actors in all, and including people with a disability. So fully agree. Actually, I tend to prefer to not talk about disability, but the advantages and the insight that people with that, what we call disability, can bring us on learning more of life and taking care of each other. Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you so much. This really neatly connects to a session we had last week with a psychotherapist, and she talked about eco-anxiety and how climate emergencies impact mental health, and then give us some tools and actually skills on how to deal with this and turn it to the benefit of actual action. And the end tone was that there are a few of these values that these climate actions should focus on, and that's truly about compassion and community and the children and the future generations. So action around this will definitely channel this anxiety into a productive modus that will probably bring a positive outcome. Thank you so much, Jan. This was really, really wonderful. It's given us such an uplifting tone for the presentation of our project. So we are very excited to listen to the students. Jan, if you have the time and the chance to stay with us, you're very, very welcome. We're gonna move on now to first hear from the group.
Can I stick around while being?
Yeah, that would be amazing. That would be truly.
I will listen along. Yeah.
That would be an honor, really. So I will call on the.
Be brave, young people. Be brave. Yeah, we need you. Yeah.
Great. So I won't take any seconds of your time, guys. So it's all up to you on presenting the product, but also the progress, the process, and how you went about it. If you could introduce the assignment, and really look forward. I think you guys should be able to share your screen, but if not, I'm happy to help. I will make you presenter, Denise.
You can try, but the thing is, with my computer, it doesn't work. But if some of my groups, someone of my group can share it, it's just because I know that I'm using.
It's okay. Who do I make
presenter? I don't have the admin rights, so it doesn't work.
Who do I make presenter?
Yara, can you?
Yes, I'll try and see if I can upload the PowerPoint.
I put it here in the chat, the link. I mean, the same link that we've used before, Yara. So it should be the same. It's just that, yeah.
Okay, Yara, I will make you presenter. Oh. For some reason, I cannot.
But I think she can even share without being presenter.
Okay, great. Oh yeah, because Jan was a guest. I think you should be able to. Mm-hmm.
It's just for me that it keeps on the charging thing.
Don't worry. And for the next group, maybe you guys can already coordinate on who's gonna. Yeah, thank you. So maybe you guys can just start with the assignment and the
sure.
Intro.
So while Yara is getting that done, we are the group with the first assignment from the Jonge Klimaatbeweging, but I will speak about that in a second. So we're like Denise Scheer, Yara van der Heuven, Eva, Arsu, and Manon. Unfortunately, some of our team members cannot be here today because they had already other commitments before, but thank you. Now it's the presentation. That doesn't change. We're just gonna represent them. About the group, maybe just interesting. We're a mixture of European studies students and law students. So that was very interesting to work together. So to start with, the content of our presentation is not groundbreaking like all of the other presentations, I assume. So we're going to first speak a little bit about the process, about the assignment and what it entails and how we went on with it. Then we will speak about the steps that we've come up with, and yeah, what it means for us, the solution. Then we will quickly show you all our final product. We will then shortly talk about the implementation plan of how we imagine this solution to move on further afterwards. And then lastly, we're going to speak about the conclusion. Also, I'm sorry, I'm going to actually have to leave after this one as well, because I have another event going on with another project. Tamara knows about it, the Global Challenges in 365 Days. We're having a guest lecture, in fact, about the aftermath of the COP and environmental law. So it is all for good things. But to come back to why we're here today, our assignment was by the Jonge Klimaatbeweging with Jay together, who has given us the assignment. And the question was, how can youth organizations become more sustainable with only little money, basically? And the idea was to come up with a roadmap to sustainability. And that was what we've been requested to do. So, well, we started the process basically. Like we started getting going immediately. And what we've done first is we have tried to get input from several partner organizations. So first, we tried to make ourselves a picture of what the Jonge Klimaatbeweging is and who they work with. Because ideally, so as the Jonge Klimaatbeweging was our client, we tried to find a solution that is obviously tailored to the organizations that they work together with. So we started with getting to know the organizations and asking them basically questions directly. But what we've also done is that at the same time, because the question was, how can organizations become more sustainable? So we've asked ourselves, what is sustainability? What are the sustainability development goals? And we've tried to research in Dutch as well as EU law. What are maybe limitations to it or regulations? What has to be done? So we know that whatever solution we come up with also is feasible and doable. So we've done this. That was in the first couple of weeks where we've looked into that. And first, it was a little bit frustrating to get answers through emails from organizations. But then finally, we actually ended up having quite some replies. And I will come back to them in a couple of slides. The next step was actually in the process was actually working on the product itself. And there we have very much appreciated all the workshops that have been given to us. I mean, starting with the starting lecture of David Boyd, but then also throughout the project, we've been meeting our client, the Jonge Klimaatbeweging, and the experts on sustainability. And that's where we actually also found a little bit a challenge again, because we've realized that all of us had a different idea of what sustainability means. And therefore also all of us have approached that differently. And then with the experts' opinions, that was really great because we had feedback straight away and we could tailor it a little bit better and change it, because we weren't actually in the beginning sure if we talk about economic sustainability or plainly environmental sustainability and all of that. So that was difficult for us, but luckily and thanks to the meeting with the professionals, that was really great to get to know different angles and aspects. So through this, we have continued further in the process and we tried to finalize our roadmap and our ideas. We've worked with the feedback that we've gotten to improve our work, and then we came up with a final product that my colleagues will present to you afterwards. But just what I've mentioned already before, as we've talked to organizations, what we'd also wanted to share with everyone here today is that there were different issues and ideas that we've gotten from youth organizations that we found very interesting, and that we then also involved and included in our solution itself. So those were just several of the youth organizations that we've had contact with, and some of the common issues that we found were the fact that like they were financially quite unstable. Often they cannot maintain their budgets, and therefore they can also not maintain people in the organization, just because people always have to leave again, and without the financial security, they're not staying in the organizations, and that is quite frustrating for the youth organizations often. But what we've also found is that some of them have mentioned that it's an issue when it comes to the tools and let's say the things that they have available in the offices and everything, that sometimes it's not by their choice. So they use like soft plastic and the electricity use and all of this. They sometimes do not have even the insight to that because it's done by an administration for them. Of course, living in the current times that we do, the COVID restrictions have also been mentioned as issues, as well as, well, general bureaucracy and the lack of the budget freedom, as we mentioned already. But it wasn't not all just issues that we've received when we were in touch with them, but also ideas. And that was very nice because we could include them straight away in our roadmaps actually afterwards. So when it comes to financial administration, they have mentioned that it would be a nice idea to switch actually to a more sustainable bank and use also sustainable cutlery. Well, that is two different things, but yeah. But then also ideas were, of course, recycling the food packaging, going vegan, going vegetarian, reduce travel for like business travels, but also to create awareness, of course, again with the diet that has come up a lot, which we're happy about because, of course, it's great that it's also the ideas already present in the organizations. And also, like lastly, the fact that to use reusable products in general when it comes to, of course, general eating, but also anything else that would be used in the office. So yeah, those were the issues, ideas, and how we got to the solution that now my colleague will present you further. Thank you very much.
So for our final product, we have created posters that contain different steps and tips for youth organizations to become more sustainable. And the different steps we have created form the basis for all our different posters. And forcing these steps together will form a framework towards becoming more sustainable. We have chosen to keep these steps quite general, as every organization's road towards sustainability is very different. The first step is identifying the SDG Objectives. The Sustainable Development Goal of the United Nations can sometimes feel like extremely abstract ideas, but they can be very useful in becoming more sustainable. The goals represent different themes relating to creating a sustainable future, and the youth organizations can pick one or more that relate to the goals of their company. And the chosen SDGs form their footing for the rest of their journey in becoming more sustainable. The next step is to look more specifically at what can concretely be improved within the organization relating to the chosen SDGs. For example, if you have chosen the Sustainable Development Goal 8, relating to decent work and economic growth, next you might identify that you work with other organizations that do not see sustainability as a priority, or that you do not give members of your organization enough space for their ideas on sustainability and want to improve this. So this phase is very different for each organization, as some might have already put in more time to become sustainable than others. Moreover, the structures of organizations are very different and require different efforts. So the specific areas of improvement within their organizations are all very different. When the points of improvements relating to the SDGs have been identified, the next step is to set SMART goals. SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. Using this method, you've created realistic goals for the organization that will allow you to become more sustainable. Next is the implementation phase. During this period, you will get to work on turning your goals into reality within the time frame that has been set out. The last step is evaluation. Within this step, you review your actions and see if you've reached your goals. If not, you can try to identify why you have not reached your goals and subsequently adjust these SMART goals. If you have obtained your goals, you can do the process again, starting with relative SDGs. This is because becoming more sustainable is a never-ending process, and there are always aspects that could be improved. As I previously mentioned, we have created different posters for the youth organizations. These posters all contain the SDG objective cycle that I've just mentioned. The difference between the posters lie in that all posters relate to different areas of work within the youth organizations. The first poster that you're seeing right now relates to meetings within the organization. We have suggestions of the SDGs seen here that you could use as a footing in the cycle. There are also examples of efforts that could be taken to become more sustainable in the area of meetings. We also linked posters to the agenda of the Jonge Klimaatbeweging, and we have included a QR code, which takes you directly to the page of the agenda, which provides more information also on sustainability and climate action. For this poster, the topic is becoming more sustainable concerning meetings, and we have identified Sustainable Development Goal 9 relating to industry, innovation, infrastructure, 12 responsible production and consumption, and Goal 13 climate action as SDGs that the youth organization might find relevant to this area of work. And we have also tips on becoming more sustainable before, during, and after meetings. Our next poster continues tips regarding supply management. Again, we see the cycle and the relevant SDG. Furthermore, there are specific tips about choosing local producers in the production and use of office supplies. Next, we have a poster on traveling. These tips are useful to the management of organization, but also to the other members. Having these posters hung up in office space should also get members of organizations to think and reflect on their own behavior. And especially posters like this could catch the eye of the members. Next, we have Going Green in the Canteen, which should also inspire reflection on the members' own behavior, in addition to inspire the management with ideas on creating more concrete plans towards sustainability. Lastly, we have a poster on Going Green in the Office. This poster is more general and focused on the different aspects of working in a more specific, more sustainable way. Eva will now tell you more about our further implementation plan behind our posters.
Yes, thank you, Yara. So in order to actually be able to implement these posters and this idea practically, we've also created a brief implementation plan, which we've divided into 3 sections: internal feedback, the distribution method, and external feedback. So for the internal feedback, there will be a round of feedback and possible adjustment. So this will give the Jonge Klimaatbeweging a chance to look at the posters more in depth and discuss it themselves. And if necessary, these posters can then also be adjusted. As we made it an editable file in Word, it should not be that hard to do. Then secondly, the distribution method should be decided on. So this is about who will receive the posters, when will they receive it, and how. This could, for example, be by email upon request. But another idea we had was to present these posters on a page on the website, because what we heard back from some of the organizations was that not all of the areas that we examined in the posters are relevant for every organization. Because, for example, not every organization has a physical meeting space. And this is especially true for these small youth organizations with very limited budgets. Furthermore, some organizations might also not want to implement all of the posters at once, because this can be quite overwhelming for team members. So they can just download one poster at a time, and once one area has become more sustainable, they can move on to the next area. So this is why such a page presenting all of these posters might be helpful. As this would allow organizations basically to pick and choose which posters they will download and which are relevant for their organization. So, So once the posters have been distributed, it is also important to ask for external feedback from the organizations that have downloaded these posters. So this can be done through either a brief email or email survey. But if possible, it would also be helpful to ask feedback from organizations which have chosen not to use the posters, because this will give us insights into the reasons organizations might not perceive these posters to be helpful or relevant for their organization. And the posters can then be adjusted accordingly. So then I'll briefly touch a bit about our experience during the project as a whole. So what we learned during the process is that when you're working on an assignment that someone else has given you, it is really important to ask for intermittent feedback. Our instructions, we thought they were a bit abstract in the beginning. So our idea of what we were supposed to deliver changed multiple times throughout the project. For example, at first, we really thought that the final product was going to look more like a written report, as this is also the kind of format that we've grown used to in an academic setting. But we found it very helpful to meet with Jay whenever we got stuck in the process. And this is also how we decided on this much more visual final product that was much more to his wishes. This assignment also helped us to become more results-oriented. So our team members, as Denise said before, we came from the European Studies program and the International and European Law programs. And both of these programs are quite theoretical in nature. So it is not uncommon to get assignments where you basically do academic literature reviews for weeks on end. And while doing this, it's kind of easy to lose sight of the end goal. But instead, during this project, we had some tangible objectives, and every adjustment we made to these posters worked towards these exact objectives and towards the end result. And as the project was very fast moving, it was also quite satisfying to see improvements to our product week by week. And this encouraged us to then make more improvements, which really helped to keep our motivation up during the entire process. Then what stood out in the experience was how smoothly the teamwork went. While we had to adjust our process and our expectations of the assignment a few times, everyone was very flexible about this and accommodating to each other's needs. A few times people were too busy with schoolwork to contribute much during a particular week, but then other teammates would do some extra work when they could, which was actually it was very helpful that we were from two different programs, because the programs run on different schedules. So first, one half of the team was very busy, and then the other half of the team was very busy. And this was also the case when, due to overlapping schedules, first could not be at some sessions, then they would always be kept in the loop. And yeah, I just want to say that it was very evident in our group that everyone wanted to be a part of this project and put in their best effort. This was also probably because it was a voluntary assignment where everyone signed up based on their own interest and their own passion for sustainability and climate action. So that was definitely a very positive experience. What also stood out was how much of a strength interdisciplinary teams are, our different study programs and our different work experiences or life experiences caused us to not only be able to research our information more widely, but we were also able to play to each team member's strengths as we worked. We also had different perspectives and knowledge about the climate issue, as Denise already mentioned, more in the perspective of it being a challenge, but actually it was also very helpful because it helped us to make a more comprehensive final product. So that concludes our presentation on assignment 1. We went from this very abstract idea of a roadmap for sustainable organizations, and what we ended up with was posters divided by the areas of work. In this way, we tried to make being sustainable easier and more digestible for small youth organizations. So thank you for listening, and if there are any questions, we would be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much. And let me be the first one to congratulate you on your fantastic work. The creativity you put in, the insight, the effort of talking and actually listening to the issues and then coming up with your suggestions and then laying it out in this very, very functional and very pragmatic manner. It's really, really fantastic. And I'm so, it warms my heart to hear about the interaction and the group dynamics. It's really fantastic. So congratulations to all of you for putting so much work and churning out such amazing products. Now I would love to hear from Jay what I would love it if you guys had a follow-up meeting maybe, and I'm sure you will, because it would be great to disseminate this information and for this internal discussion. But what are your first thoughts, Jay? Oh, we can't hear you.
First of all, thank you very, very much. Compliments on the slide and the presentation skills. It was very clear, no stuttering whatsoever. So that means the story was there, and I think you reflected on it already, saying that the teamwork was good. And yeah, I saw that in this presentation. So compliments on that. First of all, clear story. Then I want to say, like, the amount of organizations, spoke to 6 of them with good input, perfect. Like, that's how you do research on these kind of topics. So that was a really good step you took, and you took it by yourself. I was not even involved in that, you just did it. So that's very, very nice. I loved, like, the last time we spoke, there was a SDG wheel, and it was more like a model of the steps you've taken now. So I missed that model because that we made it visual, like in one, in one picture. It was visual what you meant by the steps. So that's maybe something for us to look into. How can we make it visible, clear in one picture? But further, I think the steps that are there are the perfect steps. And what I want to say, like, this is what big companies are doing now. Like, there are companies that are way beyond this, yes, but like there's a whole wave upcoming that are going to do the steps you designed now. Like, there are real consultancy companies saying, oh, let me help you with those steps. And you designed these steps now. So if you are, how do you say it? If you want to go into consultancy or whatsoever around this topic, this is a very good solid base on what you did in a voluntary project, because you understand now which steps you need to take and what is important while taking these steps. So I hope, and if you want to, we can look into what this can mean for the youth climate movement, because you made an extra implementation plan on what we should do. And I would like to invite you, if you guys, or one of you, 2 of you, the whole group wants to play a role in that with the youth climate movement, you're happy. I will happily, take you in, and let's see what we can do. Let's see how many of these posters we can get at their offices. Like, we have a kind of new partnership with Epson, a print company they print sustainable, and they would probably love to make a lot of posters for us that we can maybe send or bring and whatsoever. So I would love to have a conversation afterwards with you guys and talk this over and see what we can do, because I still have to read the posters in detail, but I love the work. So thank you very, very much, all of you, for the effort you gave the last couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Jay, for inspiring us every time you talk to us, to the group, to the entire cohort. And thank you so much for coming up with this assignment that made the students think, use their creative energies, and then really dig into this. And I have to tell you that even during the midterm review of the program, for the students, knowing that they can work with an organization for whom it will be a useful product is an absolute highlight of this project. And as you heard, the educational programs really work along academic assignments. So this is a truly unique experience, and we can thank you for that. And we are incredibly grateful for that.
Well, Tamara, if the program will continue, feel free to contact me or my successor or whatsoever for a new assignment that's practical.
Yeah, we'd love that. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Thanks again, Jay. Thanks, Group 1, Yara, Eva, Dennis left. Yeah, I'm calling on then Group 2. If you guys are ready to share your screen, start the presentation, please. We'd love to hear.
People, thank you. Good luck. I have to leave.
Yes, thanks very much, Jay.
Thank you. Bye
All
bye.
the best to you.
Bye-bye.
And we be in touch.
Yes,
Bye bye. Thank you
perfect.
again.
Ciao.
Bye bye. All right, Group 2, we would love to hear your experience, the process, the assignment, and then after your presentation, it would be great to hear from our partners their reflections.
Yes.
Lois, yes.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to our presentation. I'm Dilara, and first of all, thanks a lot to the experts and students for attending and listening to the results of the work we've been doing in the last few weeks. And also special thanks to Mr. Van de Venus and the other groups for your very nice presentations. And yeah, as you can see on the slide, our research topic is business students' perception on nature rights, and in the coming slides we will guide you through the process of our research. Yeah, but next slide. Thank you. Before that, so who are we actually? I'm Dilara, as I said. I'm a European Studies student, and the other group members are Katrin, Malus, and Meve. And so we are a quite diverse and interdisciplinary group, as we have 3 different programs in our group. So international business, European studies, and international and European law. So which I find very beneficial, since everyone was able to offer part of their own expertise throughout the project. And in the next slide, I will talk more about the content of our presentation. So in the introduction part, I'm going to introduce the assignments and also the experts we worked with. And then we're going to continue with the approach, so how we approach the project, challenges, and then we're going to continue with the process, the outcome of our product, and after that we're going to reflect a bit on how the project went and what really stood out, some more personal experiences, and then hopefully we have some questions that we can answer. So yeah, next slide. So as part of our project for the Academy for Global Governance Innovators, in collaboration with the organization Initiatives of Change, We conducted research on the perception of nature and in particular the concept of nature rights. So our target audience were business students at the Hague University of Applied Sciences, including, for example, European Studies private sector students who also take business related subjects. And our research concerned the argument that nature rights should be recognized at the same level as human rights. And we developed a questionnaire, and with that questionnaire, we aimed to get an insight on what role nature plays in a business student's life. Perhaps about a bit more about the organization we worked with. So the Initiatives of Change is a global movement of people of diverse cultures and also diverse backgrounds who are committed into building a more peaceful and sustainable and just world. We also had the very nice opportunity to work with experts. So we worked together with Mr. Willem Janssen from the Initiatives of Change organization, then Ms. Janneke Hoes, I'm sorry for the pronunciation, from the Center of Expertise in Global and Inclusive Learning, and lastly with Ms. Takács from the Center of Expertise on Global Governance, who also organized these academies, so many thanks for that. So yeah, next slide. Oh yeah, May is going to continue now with the approach to our project.
Yes, as for our approach, first we were brainstorming about the central theme and main question of this project, which was how can your chosen target population of the Hague youth be characterized specifically regarding their awareness, knowledge, and willingness to act on the issue of protection of nature and nature rights in the city. At first, we had a different target group in mind, namely primary school children, which we could interview at the playgrounds or public library. However, they could be hard to reach, especially during the current pandemic. So we changed it later on in a target group. So after a feedback session, we agreed upon having THUAS students majoring in international business, bedrijfskunde, which is business administration, or the private sector of European studies as our target group. Because the question was still like why business students are less active in such climate initiatives. And we had, for example, a sample size about like 40 students. As for our method, we used a questionnaire. We were thinking at first about 3 to 4 questions, whereas participants could also like hand in a photo of how and what they connect with nature. These questions will be related to their perception of nature and nature rights. And in the header, we explained our concept as well as the head of our goal of our project. After like having reviewed and received feedback, we ended up with 7 questions with an additional option to add a photo and quote, which Catherine will explain later on. And as for useful assistance of methods, at some point we noticed that we weren't receiving that many replies, so we kind of changed our plans of action. So we decided to make a poster to attract more attention, since it's more colorful and more like modern. And we also like added a QR code to the poster so that it will be more accessible, easy to access the questionnaire. Moreover, we also shared the poster and the link of the survey to our LinkedIn for our personal network, as well as other social media platforms.
Now we're going to explain you how the process worked, so what our survey questions were, and how we collected the information, and then of course also what the replies to the survey showed us. Next slide. So here you can see our survey questions. We ended up having more survey questions than initially expected because there were many fields which interested us and also which played into the overall topic. So we thought it would be useful to get more detailed information from the respondents. So our first question was how they think about nature having certain rights for itself. So that's basically the broad question about the perception on nature rights. Then also what role nature plays in their lives. Here we wanted to see the personal relationship to nature. The third question was if they perceive nature being something separate from themselves, or if they feel as part of nature. Then we have a question that aimed on showing the differences or the correspondence between business and nature rights. Of course, businesses are seen as legal entities and a legal person before the law, whereas nature isn't so far. So that also plays into the concept of nature rights. Then we wanted to know if business rights are going against nature rights and what our participants think of that. Then also they, as business graduates, if they have any ideas on how they want to include nature and sustainability in their everyday working life in the future. And lastly, we want to see how aware they are of initiatives in their neighborhood or their personal environment. Here you can see our Padlet. Here we basically connected and collected information. So that was also added to our approach. We kind of brainstormed there and interacted with each other and shared useful information. Next slide, please. So we're diving into the questions and the answers we received. The first question was if they ever thought about nature rights, so if they ever thought about nature having certain rights allocated for itself. And the answer was quite interesting because many of them indicated to have thought about that before, and I think we didn't really expect that. But that is, of course, a good sign for us. Next slide, please. Then here you will see an overview over different survey outcomes.
So here we put all the questions and answers together with sticky notes, and you can zoom in and see more of each one.
You can also access this yourself, but in the further presentation we will guide you through some of the most outstanding answers. Here the answers to the question what role nature plays in their personal lives, and you can go through those answers by yourself, but I will also explain a little bit what the average answer was or what our participants thought of that. So we received many replies where they said that nature is something that grounds them. They often connect childhood memories with nature. They also said that nature is calming them down, especially nowadays as all of us are living in cities and our life is not so much connected to nature as it might have been when we were childs. Yeah, so that was like the shared opinion from our participants, but there were also other insights as well, which you can see in the broad data set we have. The second question was if nature is something separate from us, or if we are part of it. And we had 29 participants on that. 25 of them indicated that they believe that nature is something they are part of. So that is the great majority. In the middle, we put a quote from one of our participants, which says, I believe we are part of it because everything in this world is nature and everything interacts with each other as an ecosystem. So that is also what other participants indicated. So that is like the broad perception business students have on that. Next slide. This question aimed on the discussion about the legal entity, because businesses are legal entities and is treated as legal persons. However, nature yet isn't. And we wanted to know what they think of this, and if they think that nature should also have a standing as a legal person before law. And many of them answered that they agreed to that. Here you can see some answers we got. They mostly focus on saying that businesses are only existing because nature is there. So if businesses have certain rights allocated for themselves, nature should also have that. Here you can see the business interests in nature. So we wanted to know if our participants believe that business interests are going against nature rights. So whether that is something separate, which can be as two opposite sides, or whether it could also go hand in hand. And many of the participants answered that they believe that it is something that is opposite from each other, because in their opinion, making profit and maximizing output and producing something in general always exploits nature's resources. So they see that as a problem. This question aimed on exploring what they would do as a business graduate to promote nature rights in business. And many of them came up with quite innovative ideas. Some of them said that they would donate some of the profit to nature organizations. There was named many times actually. Some said that innovation is needed, so businesses should drive innovation, and that is for them the only option, that business and nature rights can go hand in hand. And lastly, it was also said that transparency is the key to that. So businesses need to communicate what they are doing, how their products are produced, and the customer needs to know about that and then be able to make the decision based on that. Here we wanted to know if they know of initiatives in their neighborhood. Many of them indicated that they don't. That could be seen as a problem, because I personally believe that there are many initiatives, but somehow the communication fails, and the business students are not really informed about that. However, some also indicated that they know some smaller initiatives. One of them was, for example, as you can see in the quote, that they have a recycle system in their neighborhood, and they make use of that. And then they also apply that to their personal life by being more sustainable in their eating behavior or their mobility. One of our last questions aimed on collecting pictures which show the perception the participants have on nature. these were some of the pictures that were handed in. So that's just something to consider and for you to see. And that also goes hand in hand with some quotes they could hand in. So here you see some pictures again, and quotes they put together with that. One of them being, when looking for peace, nature is always the answer. Another one, contemporary society getting more and more disconnected with nature. So that is something they see as a problem. Then also we have a quote from Albert Einstein, Albert Einstein, where someone says, look deep into nature and then you will understand everything better. And lastly, we humans are very small and maybe even insignificant compared to nature. Who are we to decide what happens to it?
We also made a small booklet, since we're not sure if we are able to print out the photos with the quotes for a small exhibition. So we made this with all the quotes and photos.
Yeah, what have we learned during this project? Looking back, we can conclude that we all learned some new skills, like working together, online as well as offline has been a challenge. But also planning meetings in between for busy schedules was not always easy. And as this project has been on a voluntary basis, it took a while before all of us got into a flow of motivation. And next to that, we learned how to collaborate with a third party as well, which are our assignment providers. While implementing the feedback we received from them, we sometimes had to adjust our methods. And well, before starting this project, I expected a large-scale project. However, some things do not have to be major in order to make an actual difference. And the next slide, what really stood out for us during this experience, drawing up the survey questions have taught us about the rights of nature. And some of the answers we received made us think again and putting perspectives differently. Therefore, it can be said that, however small, we revised our opinions on nature's rights. And therefore, we took business students as our target group because we thought their interests would somehow conflict with the rights of nature. However, looking back at the answers, this is not really the case, and even business students do care about the rights of nature. And well, being able to participate in this project, even though it was partially online, has been very nice after so many classes being taught online. And while meeting our fellow group members in real life who have the same interests, has made this project much more alive, and the collaboration was way more efficient. And then the next slide. Well, thank you all for your attention, and let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you so much for a truly, impressive and spectacular presentation. You guys did, the methodology of the questionnaire and narrowing down your focus and then working with the answers, drawing your conclusions. such a distinct scale, you know, and then you put together a story of it and connect it to our clients, our partners' needs. So yeah, congratulations! It's very, very impressive, and I would love to hear what are the initial thoughts of Willem and Janneke, and then of course there will be a follow-up, right, to know what will happen with the product later on.
Yeah, maybe Janneke, you start as the first third party. I'm the second third party.
You're the most important one. Well, I was thinking at the beginning, I had no idea where this was going. 10 weeks ago, when you started, I had an idea in mind, making this assignment together with Willem, and the idea was totally different from what you produced in the end. And I think this is wonderful. This is how these kinds of projects should go, because then it is all about your creativity. And as you remember, Willem and I asked you to produce some standalone presentation for our large festival, Faith in Human Rights, next year in December. And now I am listening to your presentation and watching these wonderful slides. And I'm thinking, maybe we should consider not only some nice poster with some quotes, but also engaging our audience with your nice questionnaire or some questions from that questionnaire, so that they can think for themselves what I want to do, and so we can engage them in shorter discussions. Well, I would really love to talk to you again in the aftermath of this project, to together develop some nice ideas about what we can do with this. I am very content with what you presented here for us. Thank you very much. Willem.
Yeah.
Is that okay with you? Do you agree?
Yeah, it's brilliant, just brilliant. What you have been doing as volunteers and what you come up with, really. I'm completely zen after your presentation.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, with all the beautiful pictures and how you combine it with films and really, I'm really overwhelmed in that sense, that, well, in a general discussion about environment, it's always the question of where should I start? Why should not the shells of this world, the big companies should start first? But in this project, you brought these two worlds, the personal side and the business side. You brought them together, and that makes it really unique in this whole discussion, not pinpointing at the big companies, but starting with yourself. And IFC has this lovely quote of Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world. And how you build up these questions from the personal to the business to the future, bringing these two sides, human rights, nature rights, and the personal side, even in the backyard. And often it's not in my backyard, but you refer to the backyard. What are you doing in your own neighborhood? So yeah, I'm really overwhelmed. One of the pillars of IFC is ethical leadership, especially in businesses. So this presentation will really, I will show it to the board, and they will really be enthused by it. And the quality of your presentation, it's really marvelous. I like so many things. I like the way you started with introducing yourself as a diverse group from different disciplines, and really through all the hiccups of collaboration and being volunteers, you did it all in between all the stuff you had to do. You were very honest and clear about it, and that I really appreciate. And then, yeah, I have some questions, and I try to be short. Did I get well that your presumption before you started was really, well, what do business students really have to do with nature? It's a far from my bed show, I would say. then it's so astonishing that halfway your presentation you say 62% plus has been thinking about it. And that's a story you tell. First you think, well, it's not of the business, the green business, and you say, well, 60% is more is involved in that. So that makes it a strong kind of story you are telling in this presentation. And yeah, some other questions. Did I get well that there are some 30 respondents having these questionnaires filled in? That was just
yes, we had 29 respondents.
29. Okay, that's good to maybe to make clear at the beginning of the presentation. I don't know. So yeah, I like the quotes when you talk about impact measurement in this kind of qualitative research. Quotations are very, very important, and you collected a lot of them, so that's really worthwhile. So it's not about output in numbers, but in quotes, and that's very helpful for us as an organization as well. So yeah, I should stop here, but I could continue by praising you. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you so much. I hope you guys are very, very proud of yourselves. We are very proud of you, and we really look forward to hearing now from group 3, whose assignment was focused on global climate negotiations. So a little bit more connected to the Global Governance Center, who was the assignment provider, and we have Sylvia with us, who is the editor of our textbook. So we look forward to hearing, and please don't hesitate to share your screen and take over the floor.
Yes, I think I should be sharing the presentation now. Is it visible?
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, so we can start, I guess. Well, 80% of young people feel like we failed to care for the planet, according to BBC. The question therefore arises, how can we begin to care for our planet? The issue is amazingly complex, and the forces that have to be put in place for that are complicated and usually work in an ambiguous manner. As young people, we often feel like there is no way in which we can contribute. But we firmly believe that that is not the case. That's why our team of young researchers, Shania Kaspari, Denise Shear, and me, Ionica Gabriel, with a great support of Ms. Tamara, went on and decided to come with some answers to the following questions that we will discuss. Why are youth organizations under-researched? How do youth organizations improve global climate governance? What skills do youth organizations need to be successful? And what can practitioners can take away from these findings? In terms of our process, each question was studied by one of us, gathering data about the respective subtopic and analyzing it. However, even though we work independently, we had meetings in which we shared our insights from the research and brainstormed ideas for improving. The data gathering happened through both desk and field research. The field research consisted of 2 interviews we had with representatives of different youth organizations and a survey that we sent out. We decided to supplement our research with a survey because the target group for this survey were youth organizations which had already established themselves as a relevant actor in their national and, in some cases, even global climate governance spheres. We also paid attention to ensuring that we have a representative group by including organizations from all across the globe. We compared the findings of field research with the findings from data gathered from online sources and came up with certain conclusions, noticing the information that is directly linked to our point of interest. Shania, you have your mic off.
No. Still. Okay, sorry. Thank you, Gabriel. So I'll be doing the second part, or the first part, so to say, of our presentation. I am Shania Kaspari. I'll tell you more about why youth organizations are under-researched or are still considered new. Then we will examine why they are crucial to our understanding of global governance. And finally, I will also explain why youth organizations' participation in global climate governance is so important to the democratic nature thereof. All right, let's talk about why are youth organizations the new kids on the block? Why are they invisible, under-researched? Yes, and considered new in global climate governance. There are 3 reasons that I will discuss in the next few minutes. Those are historic disadvantages, lack of opportunities, and other structural barriers. So global climate governance, or global governance in general, just like international law, has internationally been, or historically been, a very state-centered affair, wherein non-state actors have very little opportunity to participate. And representative democracy as a form of participation and governance, wherein citizens have an active role, or active participation in decision-making, is a relatively new development. It then makes sense that youth organizations, which often have less funding and are more less permanent than other established non-governmental agencies or actors, are some of the last to gain a foothold in global climate governance. They are thus the new kids in this field. So, secondly, there's also, according to at least our survey results, a lack of, our survey results indicated that youth organizations still find it difficult to gain acceptance and recognition, both nationally and in global climate governance, because according to them, there is a lack of meaningful opportunities for participation within climate governance. Similarly, a study by Harriet Thew found that youth organizations feel like they are not perceived as relevant stakeholders by the UNFCCC constituents because of how limited their formal opportunities to provide input are. Now you might think, but they do have intervention opportunities, right? Yes, youth organizations do have intervention opportunities and they do make use of them. However, they don't consider them to be satisfactory opportunities for agency because the state party representatives often do not pay attention to their presentations, and the interventions themselves are not meaningful opportunities for dialogue. Next, I'll be discussing the other structural barriers that are faced by youth organizations. So our survey has revealed that youth organizations perceive their lack of financial resources and the high level of organization and coordination among the youth organizations internally and among the different organizations are some of the main barriers to their effective participation in global climate governance. This is, of course, in complement to the lack of formal participation and in high-level events like the UNFCCC and the COP. So these factors, then, the lack of resources and the difficulty in coordinating, inhibit the youth organization's ability to utilize the existing methods for participation, like the interventions, effectively, and they also inhibit them or prevent them from being able to counter the efforts of more established lobby organizations that have, of course, a way wider network and much larger funds available to them. Next, I will be discussing why youth organizations are the key to understanding global governance practices, specifically for global climate governance, of course. Since youth organizations are relatively new on the global governance stage, gaining a better understanding of their actorness will help to reveal the difficulties and structural barriers that are experienced by all new actors when trying to establish themselves at such high-level events. Furthermore, it is important to understand the link between the constituents and their perceived level of agency at these events, because it affects directly their chosen strategy for their participation in these events. THUAS study, for example, revealed that when a youth organization perceives itself to have a high level of agency at a global climate governance event, it will participate in a more useful form, for example, by providing policy proposals. Whereas if they perceive themselves to have a low level of agency, youth organizations often resort to things like staging actions, like the walkout that we saw at one of the previous COP events. The study, therefore, is important, and it revealed that this link between the perceived agency and the strategy chosen by the actors exists, and that we must therefore address the way in which actors perceive their agency in order to make sure that we can design the processes of events and participation in these events in a way that will encourage more useful contributions from each actor. This in turn will then lead to more effective use of global climate governance institutions and their events. So why are youth organizations new? Well, because they are among the last constituents to gain formal recognition at global climate governance events, which is in part due to the lack of formalized opportunities for meaningful input, and in part due to structural barriers like lack of financial resources and the high level of coordination required to participate effectively. We should study them further because studies on them have already revealed the numerous systemic barriers encountered by new actors in global climate governance, and also because it revealed how these barriers negatively affect their quality of contribution to these events. So further studies will then help us to improve the quality of global climate governance events in general. Let us now discuss question 2, which was, how do youth organizations' practices contribute to making global climate governance institutions more equitable, more just, and more inclusive? Youth organizations make global climate governance institutions more equitable because, unlike state representatives, youth organizations' opinions are determined by scientific consensus rather than economic concerns and the next round of political elections. So, as Emma Morris put it, youth organizations are perceived to have a higher moral integrity than other actors at global events because they are not paid to be there. Consulting youth organizations is therefore important because it shifts the focus to the long-term consequences of climate change, which is vital to create effective climate change policies. Their participation is also very important to ensure the inclusivity of global climate governance, because youth organizations are the representatives of over 50% of the global population. They represent the generation which will be the most affected by climate change and which will inherit all of the responsibility to solve it if we do not act now. Our survey also revealed that ensuring more inclusive representation at global climate governance events is one of the more important aims of the youth organizations in climate change, or focusing on climate change. And then the participation of youth organizations in global climate governance is also very important to ensure that it is a just affair, because, of course, I linked this with my legal background to Article 12 of the UN Human Rights Convention, UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which obliges state parties to make sure that they assign due weight, that they hear the opinions of and assign due weight to these opinions of all children on matters which affect their lives. And of course, climate change, we have just heard, is one of the most important factors that affect young people's lives. So by having state representatives at global climate governance events, we can ensure that state parties will be able to fulfill this obligation and consult youth and children on their views and give them sufficient weight by asking them what are their direct policy proposals. So in conclusion, why should we care about youth participation in global climate governance? Well, because youth participation is not only necessary, but it is also relevant and meaningful. When youth actors believe that they are afforded a high level of agency, they draw upon their unique cognitive and social powers that distinguish them from other actors to draw up concrete policy proposals and have constructive criticism and policy amendments to present. Their presentation also helps to shift the focus of global climate governance events to the long-term interests of the population and to the scientific consensus available on climate change. It therefore contributes to the legitimacy of global climate governance because it makes the process more inclusive, more equitable, and more just. We should continue to research it because youth organizations' participation reveals systemic barriers and which negatively affect the quality of new constituents' participation, which then in turn decreases the efficiency of these events. Thank you. I will now pass the floor back to Gabriel.
Well, when studying the issue of youth implication in climate change policies, the question arises immediately.
Gabriel,
what skills should young people...
We can hear you, Gabriel.
What?
We can hear you.
Oh.
We can hear him.
Now.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, so what skills should young people have for participation in climate change policies?
But maybe you want to step the presentation.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, on my computer we are still on slide 10 and I think you are going on slide 11 now. But I'm sorry, I apologize. Go ahead.
No, I see slide 11.
Okay.
Okay. Well, where was I? It is quite obvious that young people have a certain disadvantage when it comes to participating in policy making, lack of experience, of a sufficiently mature network, and the general domination of older people, among the things that Shania already mentioned. However, as you shall see, there are ways to overcome these barriers by developing the appropriate skills and abilities. Our approach regarding this matter was to gather qualitative data that would reveal certain trends about this topic. The focus was to gather the data and realize some sort of a benchmark analysis, sampling for people and organizations as a whole that demonstrated past success in actively participating in climate change policies and activism. It is impossible to build a profile of the perfect young person for active participation in global governance, but our research underlined the following characteristics that greatly contribute to success in this matter. I think you can, perfect. So the first one is networking, which is the first important skill for young people. Emphasized by both our interviews, success in this field is very related to how well someone is able to network. Therefore, young people should focus a lot on building their personal image, but also on relationship building, as references may prove to be very, very powerful allies when trying to get a meaningful seat at the table. The second one is communication, and the networking and communication skills were the most emphasized in our interviews. Presenting, persuading, public speaking should represent important points of interest for young people looking to get into global governance. Moreover, digital communication becomes more and more of an indispensable skill for youth organizations in order to raise awareness and influence policymaking. This is where young people actually have the upper hand, as technological literacy and online communication is more ingrained in them. Using proper digital communication, they can profit from the power of masses and make their causes heard way faster and easier. Collaboration, with emphasis on intercultural collaboration, is the third skill that should be honed within youth organizations. Having already the disadvantage of age and lack of experience, it becomes imperative for young people to become amazing collaborators and profit from each other's different backgrounds and experience, thus emerging as a one strong cohesive group of people instead of different people trying to fight for their cause separately. This was pinpointed by Earth Eco representative during the interview when we talked about their most successful campaigns. A recurring theme was the smooth and strong collaboration between people from many different backgrounds across all over the globe, which enabled the organization to have a multinational impact and profit again from the power of masses. The next skill is concrete writing. Law needs to be clear and concrete, and you can go back to the previous slide. Perfect. So as I said, law needs to be clear and concrete, and policymakers should focus on these two aspects in order to be successful. Therefore, the fourth finding in our study was that young people should work on developing good writing skills and a proper orientation towards writing very, very concrete pieces of text. As it was underlined by the representative of Jonge Klimat Beweging, excuse my Dutch. Anyway, global policy making is in itself a very complex task. So the ones active in this field are supposed to be very, very concrete with their suggestions, emphasizing clear and actionable plans that will provide specific results. More often than not, youth organizations also can benefit from networking opportunities presented at different events that can be organized by those. Moreover, these represent good ways of reaching out for funds, a lack of funding barrier that was mentioned by most of our respondents. After the interviews, it became clear that young people trying to make a change with regards to global governance and climate change would benefit from learning about how to properly organize an event and how to plan a campaign for their event and for their cause. Now I can go to the next slide. And one distinct characteristics of how Earth Eco International approaches their processes is that they educate young people about the basics needed for a certain project, but then each person in the project comes with the next topic that the team is supposed to know and teaches that. This process of collaborative learning tailored for each project individually proved to be very useful for them and was pinpointed to have raised both competence levels in different subjects and the motivation of the people. The mode of collaborative agile learning is a framework that offers more autonomy, space for creativity, and also more sense of responsibility to young people, while also being an important success driver for Earth Eco International. The next question that the team worked on was trying to find out what practitioners and future professionals can learn from these cases. As previously mentioned, also for this question, we have used different ways of researching, meaning we went through academic papers and articles online, but we also combined it with interviews that were conducted with youth organizations. Harriet Tew firstly examined the relationship between youth organizations and UN and the efficiency of working together. What was found was that participation of youth organizations was stronger if they have themselves perceived their impact more and their identity. Therefore, if professionals want to involve youth organizations more, they can focus on enhancing self-perception and therefore improve the impact. This can also be used by the organizations themselves as a method if they want to be more proactive in participating in policy changes. Another point that was found mainly through doing interviews, but also discussed in the papers, is that for youth organizations, one of the problems is too little financial means available. Therefore, to improve the continuity of volunteers, one thing to be changed could be the allocation of financial means. Tew also talked about the fact that governments indeed realize all over the world that it is important to cooperate with youth organizations. This could be seen in the famous example of the Fridays for Future movement, where young people were now directly involved in the COP conference, because this was obvious that young people should be involved. Drawing from these youth organizations can in the future also try to take more active approaches towards governments. This can be done locally to create an impact, but also on an international level by getting involved with international organizations such as the UN or UN agencies. Another point of view was that young people are often frustrated when getting involved with policymakers. This then leads to less involvement and they stop trying to come up with ideas. So, what could be done by governments as well as professionals is that they actively show the importance and possible impact of youth organizations when working together. Young people are put into an oppressed position which is internalized by them, sometimes even on a subconscious level without them realizing, and often they give up trying and involving themselves because of this frustration. To come back to the previous points, young people can actually make a difference with the policymakers, but what should be done is that this is made clear to the young people so they are empowered and feel the necessity of involving themselves in the discussions. Lastly, what should be borne in mind is the role of globalization in the process. Globalization takes place through the enhancement and interconnectedness. Therefore, youth organizations can also use this to their advantage and be connected with other organizations all over the world. Professionals can keep that in mind in the future when also realizing that the scope of impact is increased and enhanced through young people all over the planet being more connected with each other. Now, moving to the last part of our presentation, we'd like to share our thoughts about the project, and here I let the floor to Shania again.
Yes, thank you. So we must first of all say that conducting the field and the desk research at the same time was a very fantastic opportunity for us to just get a better understanding and develop our skills on both of those methods. For that, the interview with Mr. Van Muster and Dr. Takács were invaluable to help us to create a survey and to figure out what makes a good survey, one that people will actually answer. We also got a few tips on how to motivate people to answer it and how to reach out to the participants in a way that they will best respond to. Dr. Berg then later helped us by reviewing our desk research. She gave us so many helpful pointers to further improve the quality and the accuracy of our research, which we definitely appreciated, and I personally must say learned a lot from. So this project really helped us and allowed us to familiarize ourselves with the tasks of academic researchers in a learning by doing approach. I must also say that we definitely appreciated the opportunities to discuss global climate governance and the role of youth organizations with all the different experts that we met during these events and in the interview sessions. This not only allowed us to familiarize ourselves with their strategies, but also to understand what skills that they need to establish themselves as relevant stakeholders and what difficulties they encounter along the way. So the Academy then also helped us, and because it acted as a fantastic networking platform during the COVID pandemic now, and it helped us to establish a network with experts and also to serve as a platform for numerous interesting discussions with like-minded and ambitious individuals. Thank you so much for your attention. If you have any further questions, now is definitely the time to ask.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this wonderful presentation and your thorough work. I have to say that Sylvia left a message. She apologized, also wrote me. She has to go. Unfortunately, this is something she couldn't extend her stay with us, but she offers that if you guys are after having done so much on the paper and on your research and analysis, if you were interested in having this to be considered in the textbook. She would love to give on the editorial feedback on this and further guidance. And I think there's a really solid foundation already in place. So you guys worked so hard. Obviously, it was a very small group, essentially 2 people, and then with the kind addition of Dennis's assistance. So that's highly appreciated. You guys did so much. I think it would be great. It would have been great to see the questionnaire, a little bit of a peek inside on what were the areas and the questions. But you did mention which information come from where. So I just, I think it would have been also just to show off what an amazing survey you guys designed. It was really, really rich. And yeah, I was wondering what was the final outcome. Did you receive a satisfactory response, or can you give us maybe information on that?
Yeah, so the reason we didn't include the survey in the final paper or presentations just yet is because I still have to figure out how to make the answers anonymous, because some of the groups indicated that they would not like to be indicated by name in the results of our presentation. So once I have understood how to do that, I would definitely be able to share the survey with all the people that are also interested in seeing the results. So far for the survey, we had, I think, 7 responses. Let me quickly check up on that. I was not really satisfied with the rate of response that we had, but luckily Gabriel supplemented that with the interviews, which then definitely improved the depth and the quality of the responses that we received.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much. When I asked Sylvia what she thinks, she said that you guys have made, such an impressive progress. You brought together so much information to these very complex questions. I think each question could be a book chapter in and of itself. So bringing together something comprehensive is definitely an art, and you guys did that. So huge congratulations on that. And I think with that, this final event and the presentation of your fantastic work is done. So yeah, just a few words from me. Just as Willem said, me too. I'm overwhelmed, and just how the assignment seemed in the very beginning. Janeke mentioned that even she who wrote the assignment didn't really maybe have a vision of what will be the end of it, but you guys picked up. I think all 3 of you, all 3 groups picked it up and then ran with it, and then brought out the max of it. With your creativity, this inquisitorial approach, the surveys, the interviews, so really wanting to reach out, no assumptions, collecting this information from those who are involved, especially during pandemic, it's very, very hard. So absolutely fantastic research work, conceptualizing on, okay, so we have these abstract questions now. How do we break it down? What does it mean? What does it mean to you guys personally? And then put your creative energy into that direction, and then maybe even tweak it sometimes, as some of the groups said that they decided on something very fundamental halfway through to change it and to recalibrate the approach. So that's also great. You guys have that flexibility of, all right, I've done a lot of work, but now I think I want to work on a different direction. I think it's going to take us further. So then you did that, and then you of course didn't start from scratch. You started from experience, and yeah, I think overall, all these products show so much dedication, and then finally the fact that you did something that does not offer credit, that is truly, it was a pilot. So for me also the organizational side was, the schedule, does it work out? And then I decided to extend it. I didn't want to put pressure on you. So everything was a little laboratory, and you guys filled it up with so much great energy, awesome cooperation, your creativity, your great research. So absolutely, you know, kudos to you guys, to all of you. Thank you so much to Yannick and to Willem for showing up for the feedback sessions and always taking it so seriously and you know, reflecting so, you know, in a very complete manner. And also Jay, he was really into it. I think he took it really seriously and gave such great feedback. I know that you must have learned a lot from Sylvia, because with every conversation I learned from her. She's just really wonderful. And I know that Barbara was logged in for a little while. She also today she's moving houses, so I especially appreciate that amongst the chaos she really wanted to see your work, guys, and she sent me a message of how fantastic it all looked, and she can't wait to see the recording. Also thanks to Ada, who provided assistance, and I hope took some nice screenshots of us for our archives, and you know, the speakers who came, the experts. We were very lucky with some outstanding speakers. So thank you so much for filling out the midterm review. I'm going to circulate the final review, and I very much hope that towards the end of January, we can have a get together in person. We can celebrate, talk, maybe talk about, you know, the follow-ups, what's next, without putting undue pressure on you. And then we can give you some kind of a token of a certificate with our new logo or something like this. I wish we could give you credits, because what you did is absolutely, you know, ECTS worthwhile, the quality and your engagement throughout. So truly, thank you so much for all your work and all your time. And it was such a pleasure to work with you and get to know you guys. Yeah, I don't know if anybody would like to say a few words. I imagine you guys are tired, but I definitely want to meet in person. This is not the way to say goodbye. Yeah, and there's no goodbye, because I think there's definitely a follow-up on this fantastic work. I'm so proud of you guys. So, and you should too be, because you put yeah, you're very, very talented and really committed. Amazing.
Thank you for supporting us the entire year.
You're very
Thank you
welcome.
so much.
My genuine pleasure, really. So I will be in touch with you guys and see you. I wish you a really good break. I hope that there are not many more commitments this week and next, and then you can truly take a little bit of a breather and enjoy, and then you'll be healthy and happy through the holidays. And I'll definitely see you toward the end of January, and I really can't wait to see you guys in person. All right, bye bye everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. All the best.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.